All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are live for the first online advanced Scratch lesson for 2024. My name is Gary, or you can call me Mr. Code. I cannot wait to get this series running. This is a weekly lesson where we're going to talk about advanced Scratch techniques, and we're going to involve things like maths, coding, and all sorts of programming techniques that you may or may not have learned in the past in our other tutorials. So if you are watching this, then you are one of our very valuable channel members. Welcome to our very first stream. I cannot wait to talk to you guys. You can message me in the live stream, or you can send me an email afterwards. Either way, I will get to you as soon as I can. Okay. So when we are starting these lessons, we got to make sure that you know all the basics of Scratch. So if you don't know how to organize your desktop, how to make sprites move around, or how to create variables, then I highly suggest that you do all of our basic lessons first. Inside our playlist for our Scratch lessons, there will be a beginner title on the front of each lesson that we consider as a beginner lesson. So you do a few of them to get the hang of Scratch before you dive into some of these harder ones. All right, so we are going to get started with this Milkshake Tycoon game. Okay, so let's get started. All right, Milkshake Tycoon is going to be a game about buying milkshakes or giving people milkshakes because you run a milkshake store. So here we're going to create a little bit of a background. Make sure, you know what, these backgrounds you can have any kind of background, but I'm going to have my background in the city. I'm going to have a milkshake truck. It's going to be a food truck. This is going to represent my milkshake store. I'm going to set the truck over to the side over here. I'm going to make it nice and small. And the plan is that we're going to have these characters walk over, collect the milkshake, and then go away. Okay? But the thing is that with our game, we want to make it so that this is all controlled by variables, because this is an advanced lesson. This is not going to show you all the little nitty-gritty bits of how to create a sprite or how to make a sprite move around. These are more advanced techniques. Okay, so the way that we are going to think about this game is to think about responsibility of code. Now, what do I mean by responsibility of code? When you are doing an object-oriented program, each part of your code should make sense, should be responsible for its own little world. For example, the van of this game shouldn't actually care about where all the people are, and it shouldn't keep track of the score, for example, because the score is kept by the game at large. Okay, so we don't create a variable on the van, and we don't create the variable on the person neither. We don't create the variable on the little characters, because the little characters walking back and forth from the van shouldn't be responsible for calculating the score of the game. So what is the element then that keeps track of the score or keeps track of the time? Well, one way that we can do it is we can create a referee as an element, as a sprite, or you can simply use the backdrop. The backdrop is one of those areas that you can put code, but it's something that nobody thinks of actively when they're creating a game. A lot of the time you create a game, you create the sprite, you put all the code in the sprite, even the variables, and then the game still works. And that's great. The game works, but when you get to higher level program thinking, and when you're making more and more involving projects, you want to make sure that your code is being handled responsibly by the correct elements. All right, let's show you what I mean by that. Again, if there are any issues with the audio, if you cannot hear me, I apologize in advance, and I will try to address it for the next video, okay? All right. So we're going to make it, let's create the game, a simple game first, okay? So we got a character. This character is going to be a spawner, okay? So this spawning character says characters, we're going to call it customers. Okay, it's always really good to name your characters. Customers. Now these customers, when the game starts, it starts off empty. Okay, we got to start off hidden. Why am I doing that? A lot of you may know is because we are going to spawn some clones of this character. So here, when we go control, we're going to create a loop, start with 10. We're going to wait for 3 seconds before we start our spawning. And then we're going to create a clone of our character. Okay, now this is all starting to look familiar. Okay, so when we start the game, our character is going to go invisible, but then every 3 seconds it's going to spawn a copy of itself. When we spawn a copy of itself, we use our when I am start as a clone event. When I start as a clone, go to a random position, but then I go to the X position that I am currently in. Set X to 204. And then we're going to change our... Ooh, where is it? Change our... What was I thinking? Oh, visibility. Yeah, because we're hidden. Yeah, so we got to show ourselves. You can see that I'm not reading off a script right now. I'm actually teaching you live. What we're doing is we're creating a very basic game, but we're going to add some object-oriented programming principles to it because we need to be able to understand the responsibility of code. Okay, so now we've got a customer sprite, we have a food truck sprite, and we have the thank you so much for that. I think yeah, I'm reading these chat messages now, so really sorry about that, guys. So here we have our character, who is the customer. We have the food truck, and then we have the backdrop. Now here's the million-dollar question: who should be responsible for the score? Where should we put the score of this whole game? If you think about it, imagine if I was playing a game that was an online game. Imagine I was making an online game where there were players that were trying to score better than the other player and win against each other. Okay? What happens if I make it so that one character controls the score? Well, in a game, you probably won't tell the difference, right? It's like if we're playing tennis. I'm playing tennis, you're playing tennis. We play the tennis match together, and then I'll say, I'll keep track of the score. Okay? And that's great if we're friends. But if we're in a competition, that's different. Because if we're on a competition, we can't just trust one person to keep track of the score. They might accidentally forget the score, or they might cheat, and then they might invent a score. Okay, so this is what we call zero trust programming. Zero trust programming means that we are not going to entrust game attributes like the score with a game character. Now, in a Scratch game, we don't have that. We don't have multiple players trying to outscore each other. We can't play a multiplayer game, right? But it is a habit for us to start thinking about responsibility of code. If I made it so that the food truck was responsible for the code, then that's going to potentially mean there's going to be some error, right? Because the food truck is the player, and then if I make the food truck in charge of the code, then potentially if I was making an online game, then the player can like alter some code on their computer and then feed it into the network and say, hey, I actually scored 1,000,000 points. And then the computer or the game, the online network, will have to trust them because they're like, oh, okay, you said you scored 1,000,000 points, you must have scored 1,000,000 points because the game was written that way. But zero trust programming means that we need to now think really carefully about responsibility of code. So the code normally, if I was doing this for beginners, we would probably go, oh, okay, the food truck, we create a character, we're going to create a variable, set a variable. I'm going to create a new variable called score or money to 0 when we get started, and then this character, every time we touch the truck, we're going to change the money by 10 points, $10. Right? In actual programming, you'd look at this and you'd be thinking like there's something wrong here. The reason is because the money is being handled by the customer. So the customer is saying that you're getting this amount of money, and the truck is saying that we're creating a whole variable called money. Okay, but imagine if I had this game, this was a really big game. We have different people coding for the truck, different people coding for the customer. They don't know where this variable is being set all the time. Right? So that is why we need all these variables in one place, but we can't put it on the customer. We can't put it on the food truck. We can put it on somewhere that is the general public information. Okay? And that's where we have the backdrop. Okay? So in the backdrop, you can see that this is empty, but you can create the variable here. Okay? Another alternative is to create a referee character, where you would create a sprite called a referee, and there is literally a sprite called a referee. If you do go search for referee in a sprite, there is an actual referee there. Why is it there? It's because of this programming principle that you need to have responsibility of code, to divide up the responsibility so that it makes sense, so that all the scoring is kept by one element. Okay, so that is why there's this referee character there. Okay, now back to the backdrop. We're going to go into customer. We're going to delete those blocks that we just created. And then we're going to create the actual variable here. So set money to 0. But now is the tricky bit. If I was doing coding for beginners, I would say, oh, we'll just change the variable when my customer touches the food van, right? But that is not going to work because I want all my code in the same place. I want everything to do with the variables in the same place. So that is why we can't put the code on the character. We need to somehow, put it onto the backdrop. And this is how we do it. We create an event. We're going to call this event. When I receive message, a new message, we're going to call it, for example, earn money. Earn money. Okay, when I receive earn money, then I'm going to increase my money. Change my money by $10. This is much neater now. You can see that if I needed to change anything to do with the variables, I go into one place to manage it all. I don't go into one character to set the changing of the variable. I go to another character to set the setting of the variable, and then and have all sorts of mistakes pop up because I have variable being changed everywhere through the game. I have everything in one place, and not only is this place impartial, it's also really easy to understand because it is the backdrop of our game and also the backdrop of our sprites as well. So let's have a look at that again. Here we go, change money by 10 on the backdrop. But that means that I need to fire off the message to earn the money. Okay, so here I go back into my character, and then I can now broadcast the message that I am earning the money. Okay, broadcast message, earn money. Now, if I'm going too quickly, you can always pause and replay after the live stream is over. So don't worry too much about that. If you lose connection, don't worry about that. You will be able to rewatch this because you are a channel member. You are one of my beloved. Okay, so here when we hit the play button, you will see that our character comes in, and we collect it. And we earn our money. Can't see the money. I'm just double checking where my variable is. Okay, the tick was off. Okay, here we go. We'll try it again. Money 0. Customer comes in, and each time they come in, we are now increasing our money count. Just going to check really quickly on our chat. Excellent. It looks like some people are already watching this this stream. I really appreciate everybody's engagement and input. Thank you so much for joining this stream. I'm really sorry that we started off with no sound. I will make sure that that does not happen again. Okay, so now that we know how to divide up the responsibility of code, we can now ramp up the complexity of our code without going into too much hassle going back and forth through the characters. We can now stay on our backdrop and create more variables that we can use to tweak the difficulty and also the pace of the game. So let's see how we can do that. All right, so here in our backdrop, we got our variable for money. We got our and the event that changes the money. But now let's make it so that we're setting all sorts of stuff. So let's create a new variable called customer speed. Customer speed. So we're going to set the customer speed to 3 when we start. And then we're going to make it so that the customer speed may change. Okay, so if we score really well, we increase customer speed. Okay, so here we can make it so every time I earn money, I can also go variable change customer speed by 0.3. Okay, so now we are going to set this variable, and also I want to make it so that we can change the gap in which customers are coming. So here we're going to say customer interval. This is the time between the customer coming. Customer interval. Set customer interval. We started with 3 seconds, right? But each time I earn money, I'm going to make it so that the customer interval decreases by, say, 0.2. Change customer interval by minus 0.2. Okay? And if I was now going back into the food truck, I can use these variables instead of my of these magic numbers. We call these magic numbers. Magic numbers are like these arbitrary numbers that we don't want. We want all these to be variables, as many of them as we can. So here, change x by minus 3. We change that to customer speed. And wait 3 seconds, we change that to customer interval. Boom. All of a sudden, your game is going to start getting harder and harder as it goes along, and we are managing all the variables of the game over here. Okay, we press the flag, and then we go back over here, and ooh, whoops. Let's have a look at the customer again. Change X by customer speed. Oh, it has to be minus. So I go back over here. Set customer speed to 3, negative 3. And then change customer speed by negative 0.3. Alright, now we're in business. Okay, first customer comes in. Yoink. And you're going to see up the top, it's getting harder. Characters are coming faster and faster. And it will keep on speeding up. Oh, hold on. It's only 10. Only 10 people. So the way we fix that is we go back into the customers, and instead of repeat 10, just repeat forever. Any questions so far, guys? Let's have a look at this. Excellent work. I'm really happy with the way that this game is turning out right now. Save this game so far that we have. Call it Milkshake Tycoon. And put your own name afterwards. Because what I want you to do is that after you've created your own version of this game, I want you to email it to me. I want you to email your version of the game to me so that I can check your code. If you have any problems or any trouble, you can attach a message onto it as well. My email is info@creatoracademy.com.au. You can email me with your file so that I can see your progress. Okay. All right, let's get back into it. Another thing I want to talk about is this idea of something called a game tick. So we've talked about responsibility of code, which is this really advanced idea for Scratch, because a lot of the time with Scratch, just write it until it works, right? But today is really the first lesson where we really thought about which sprites are responsible for which parts of the code. If you wanted to take this to a more advanced level, you would also need to think about something called the game tick. And the reason that we talk about this idea called the game tick is because a lot of game development happens with text, not with block coding like in Scratch. In Scratch, we have all these events and stacks of code where we can code things in parallel. Well, in C++ or in Java or anything like that, you can't code in parallel. You have to have everything happen in one long sequence. And the idea of the game tick basically means that every second of the game, you need to have something that's happening. So we have a luxury with Scratch where we can say just wait for 3 seconds before this happens on this stack of code. So we don't have to have one big line of code on the game tick to check what should be happening every single second or every single frame. But a game tick would work something like this. So if you had a game where we had a customer coming every 3 seconds, you probably also need something else happening while in between people like traveling to your food truck. So for example, your money could also be decreasing to run the food truck every second. So here we could also say change when I receive earn money, create another one, expense. When I receive expense, what do I want to do? I want to decrease the amount of money I have. How often does the expense happen? Well, expense happens on the expense interval. Make another variable, expense interval. Whoops. Okay, so we go change, set the expense interval to 2 seconds. So every 2 seconds we lose $5. Well, that seems a little bit much. Maybe every 2 seconds we lose $3. Okay, so we might even go into the negatives for our money, just like a real business. So you can see that because we keep all of our variables in one area, one place that is responsible for the code, it's easier to handle this. And now you can go back into your other stuff, your characters, and then you can work out how that expense is happening. So who should be in charge of the expense? It should also be the backdrop. So here, when the flag is clicked, we can say to, I'm just going to put all the code to the side here, and then we can make it so that we have a forever loop where we say wait for the expense interval, and then we can decrease the money by the money change. Okay, so expense interval, and then I will fire off expense. So broadcast expense. And you can see that this style of programming means that you are very structured with your coding, and it also is something that you can use through all sorts of other activities as well, not just in Scratch. Okay. So I'm at $1 now. Now I got $11. But you can see money is ticking away when I am not taking any customers, just like real life. Okay, so this lesson we have been talking about the responsibilities of code. We've been talking about the importance of a game tick and why it is really useful to keep all your code to do with your variables in one place that is impartial. We call it impartial because this is all single player, right? Where we're designing games for one single user, so we don't really need to worry about people injecting code into your program, but it is something that should be at the top of your mind when you are creating a game or any kind of high sophisticated program. Let's check one more time to see if anybody can send me any questions. Nope, it's looking nice and quiet for our very first stream. I really enjoyed this, and like I said, if you have any questions at all, make sure you send me an email or pop me a comment in the bottom of this video. And thank you very much for bearing with me. At the start of this video, it was a little bit quiet. We're going to make sure that we get this nice and smooth going forward. I'll see you next week, or you can stick by. In about 25 minutes time, I'm going to do our advanced Python class. Hope to see you then. Okay, bye-bye.